You're living in a prison. The bars, other people's opinions. The lock, your desperate need for their approval. Every morning you wake up and put on a mask. You check your phone to see if strangers validated your existence while you slept. You dress not for comfort, but for judgment. You speak not your truth, but what you think they want to hear. And you call this living.
What if I told you that over 2,000 years ago, a Greek philosopher named Epicurus discovered the antidote to this soul-crushing disease? What if everything you've been taught about success, happiness, and human connection is not just wrong, it's deliberately keeping you enslaved? He said something that would get him canceled today. I have never wished to cater to the crowd. For what I know they do not approve, and what they approve I do not know. Think about that. Really think about it. When you stop caring what others think, everything changes. Not some things, everything. Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Not to me, but to yourself. When was the last time you said what you really thought? Not what was safe, not what was acceptable, not what would get you likes or avoid conflict, but what you actually, truly believed? Can't remember? You're not alone. You're part of an epidemic. We live in a world where authenticity is a luxury most can't afford, where your worth is measured in hearts, thumbs up, and follower counts, where you've been trained since birth to perform for an audience that doesn't even know your middle name. Think about it. From the moment you could understand language, what did you hear? What will people think? Don't embarrass yourself. You need to fit in. Your parents meant well. They were trying to protect you. But what they actually did was hand you a script for a play you never auditioned for. And now? Now you're so deep in character, you've forgotten who you really are. The prison of perception has no locks, only the illusion of them. You check your phone how many times a day? 50? 100? Each check is a little prayer. Please, someone, anyone, tell me I matter. But here's the brutal truth that no one wants to admit. The opinion of the crowd is the death of the individual. Every time you modify your behavior for their approval, you're committing a small suicide. Every time you swallow your truth to avoid their judgment, you're poisoning your soul. Every fake smile, every diplomatic lie, every moment you choose their comfort over your authenticity, you're dying. And the most tragic part? They're not even thinking about you. While you're losing sleep over what they might think, they're losing sleep over what someone else thinks of them. It's a massive circle of insecurity, and everyone's both prisoner and guard. You know that study from Yale? The one that showed people would literally electrocute themselves rather than sit alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes? That's not about boredom, that's about terror. Terror of meeting the stranger that lives inside your own skin, the real you, the one you've been running from your entire life. Because when you're alone, truly alone, whose opinion matters then? This is where most people panic. This is where they reach for their phone, turn on the TV, text someone, anything to avoid the conversation they need to have with themselves. But not you. Not today. Today, you're going to meet Epicurus, and he's going to show you the way out. Picture this: Athens, 306 BCE. While everyone else is chasing power, glory, and recognition, there's this guy starting a revolution in his garden. Epicurus wasn't interested in fame. He wasn't trying to impress the Senate or win public office. He did something far more radical. He opted out of the entire game, and they hated him for it. Why? Because when you stop playing by their rules, You expose the game for what it is, a collective delusion. Epicurus understood something that modern psychology is only now catching up to. The pursuit of external validation is a form of unlimited desire that can never be satisfied. Think about it like this. When you're hungry, you eat, and eventually you're full. When you're tired, you sleep, and eventually you're rested. These are what Epicurus called natural and necessary desires. They have endpoints, they can be satisfied. But the desire for approval, for recognition, for universal love? Validation is a thirst that grows with drinking. You get 100 likes, you want 1,000. You get 1,000, you want 10,000. You get 10,000, and suddenly anything less feels like failure. You're not chasing satisfaction. You're chasing a moving target that speeds up the closer you get. Epicurus called these vain desires. Vain not because they're conceited, though they often are, but because they're empty, hollow, infinite. And here's where his philosophy gets really interesting. He said the highest form of human pleasure wasn't what you think. It wasn't sex or drugs. It wasn't even happiness in the way we usually think about it. It was ataraxia, freedom from mental disturbance, tranquility of mind, the unshakable peace that comes from needing nothing from anyone. Imagine that. Imagine waking up tomorrow and not caring, genuinely not caring, whether anyone likes you, approves of you, or even notices you exist. How would you dress? What would you say? What chances would you take? What truths would you finally speak? Who would you become if you gave yourself permission to exist without apology? Epicurus knew the answer. He lived it. And that's why, 2,300 years later, we're still talking about him while the approval seekers of his day are dust. But here's what they don't teach you in school about Epicurean philosophy. It's not about becoming a hermit. It's not about nihilism or not caring about anything. It's about understanding, really understanding where genuine satisfaction comes from. Not from the crowd. Never from the crowd. For what I know they do not approve, and what they approve I do not know. Let that sink in. The things Epicurus valued, deep friendship, philosophical inquiry, the simple pleasure of existence, the crowd couldn't understand. And the things the crowd valued, status, power, superficial recognition, Epicurus saw as prisons. You cannot drink from the well of approval without poisoning your authenticity. And before you say, but that was ancient Greece, things are different now, let me stop you. Things are worse now. At least in Epicurus's day, you could escape to your garden. Now? Now the crowd follows you everywhere, in your pocket, on your wrist. The panopticon of public opinion never sleeps. Every post is a petition for validation. Every share is a security check on your social standing. Every comment thread is a courtroom where you're always on trial. And what's the verdict? It doesn't matter. Because the jury changes every day, and their standards are written in water. Marcus Aurelius, not an Epicurean, but he understood this truth, said something that should haunt you. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Let's say that again. You love yourself more than you love them, but you value their opinion of you more than your own opinion of yourself. That's not just irrational, that's insane. And Epicurus knew it. Now, you might be thinking, ancient philosophy is interesting, but what about my real-world problems? I have a job, I have relationships. I can't just stop caring what people think, can't you? Or is that just another bar in your cage? Let's talk about what actually happens in your brain when you seek approval. Every time you get that hit of validation, a like, a compliment, a nod of approval, your brain releases dopamine. Same chemical that floods your system when you do cocaine. You're not seeking connection, You're chasing a high, and like any addiction, you need more and more to get the same effect. What satisfied you last year doesn't even register now. You're building tolerance to your own life. But here's what's really fascinating and terrifying. Studies from Harvard and Yale show that people who organize their self-worth around external validation experience what psychologists call an external locus of control. Translation? You've handed the keys to your happiness to people who don't even know they have them. You've made your peace of mind contingent on variables you can't control. The market might crash. Trends might change. That person whose approval you're killing yourself to earn might wake up in a bad mood, and your entire sense of self crumbles. Epicurus saw this years before we had fMRI machines. He understood that when you outsource your satisfaction, you're building your house on quicksand. But when you develop what he called clear vision, Ataraxia, everything shifts. You start to see the game for what it is. You realize that everyone scrambling for approval is just scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of being rejected. Scared of discovering they might not be who they pretend to be. The loudest chains are the ones we forge in silence. You know what's really wild? That fear of rejection you carry, it's evolutionary. Tens of thousands of years ago, being cast out from the tribe meant death. Your ancestors who didn't care about fitting in, they didn't survive to pass on their genes. So your brain is running software designed for a world that doesn't exist anymore. Getting unfriended on Facebook won't kill you. Being excluded from the group chat won't leave you to starve in the wilderness. That presentation that didn't go perfectly? Not a saber-toothed tiger? But your nervous system doesn't know that. It's still scanning for threats to your social standing like your life depends on it. Because once upon a time, it did. But that time is over. And Epicurus figured this out before anyone else. In civilization, the evolutionary imperative to fit in becomes a psychological prison. Want to know something that will blow your mind? The people whose approval you're seeking? They're seeking yours. The person you're trying to impress is trying to impress you. The judge you imagine is a defendant in their own trial. It's all projection, all of it. When someone judges you harshly, they're not seeing you. They're seeing their own insecurities reflected back. When they criticize your choices, they're defending their own. When they attack your authenticity, they're mourning their own lost self. The applause of many is the silence of self. And once you understand this, really understand it, their opinions become what they always were: noise. But here's where it gets really interesting. When you stop caring what they think, something unexpected happens. You don't become antisocial. You become truly social for the first time in your life. This is the part that surprises people most about Epicurean philosophy. The man who said he never wished to cater to the crowd also said, "Of all the means to ensure happiness throughout the whole life, by far the most important is the acquisition of friends." Seems like a contradiction, doesn't it? It's not. It's the key to everything. See, when you're performing for approval, you're not making friends. You're collecting audience members. When you're crafting your personality to fit their expectations, you're not connecting. You're conducting a transaction. I'll be who you want me to be if you'll validate who I'm pretending to be. That's not friendship. That's mutual deception. But when you stop caring what others think, when you show up as yourself, unapologetically and without disguise, something magical happens. The fake friends disappear. Good. They were never your friends anyway. And the real ones, the ones who see you, actually see you, and choose to stay, those relationships become deeper than anything you've experienced before. Because here's the truth. Freedom begins where others' opinions end. And when you're free, you can finally love. Not from need, not from insecurity, not from a desperate desire to be seen as lovable, but from abundance, from choice, from the simple joy of shared existence. Epicurus didn't avoid people. He created a community of genuine souls who'd also opted out of the approval matrix. They weren't trying to network or climb social ladders. They were just being together. Can you imagine? Conversations where no one's trying to impress anyone? Where there's no subtext of status or positioning? Where you can say what you think without calculating the social cost. That's what becomes possible when you stop caring what they think. But let me be clear about something, because this is where people get Epicurus wrong. This isn't about becoming a sociopath. It's not about mistreating people or ignoring social contracts. It's about understanding the difference between consideration and subjugation. You can be kind without being a people pleaser. You can be thoughtful without being a prisoner. You can contribute to society without sacrificing your soul on the altar of public opinion. In fact, you'll contribute more when you're not constantly second-guessing yourself. Think about everyone who's ever changed the world. Did they care what others thought? Did they wait for permission? Did they dilute their vision to make it more palatable? No. They had what Epicurus had, the courage to trust their own judgment over the crowds. And here's the beautiful irony. When you stop seeking approval, you often get more of it than ever before. Why? Because authenticity is magnetic. Because courage is attractive. Because people are starving for someone, anyone, to show them it's possible to live without the mask. Every like you chase is a piece of your soul you trade. But when you stop trading, when you keep your soul intact, you become something most people only dream of. Whole. So how do you actually do this? How do you rewire decades of conditioning? How do you break chains you've worn so long they feel like skin? First, understand this. Ataraxia is not found. It is uncovered beneath the rubble of others' expectations. It's already there. Under all the performance, beneath all the masks, behind all the anxiety, there's a version of you that knows exactly who you are and what you want. You don't need to create this person. You need to excavate them. Start with this. The next time you feel the urge to check your phone for validation, don't. Sit with the discomfort. Feel it. What's actually happening in your body? That tightness in your chest? That itch in your brain? That's withdrawal. You're literally detoxing from approval. And just like any detox, it's going to be uncomfortable at first. Your brain will scream. It will create elaborate scenarios about all the terrible things that might be happening while you're not checking. It will insist that this time is different, that you need to look, that something important is waiting. It's lying. Nothing on that screen is more important than the conversation you're avoiding with yourself. Here's an exercise Epicurus would have loved. Write down every decision you made yesterday. All of them. What you wore, what you said, what you posted, what you didn't post. Now, next to each one, write why you made that choice. Be honest. Brutally honest. How many were for you? How many were for them? The ratio might shock you. Now here's the hard part. Start making different choices. Small ones at first. Wear the shirt you love but think is too much. Say the thing you've been holding back in that meeting. Post the photo where you look happy instead of perfect. Feel the discomfort, feel the fear, feel your nervous system screaming that the tribe is going to reject you. And then, watch nothing happen. The world doesn't end. People don't flee in horror. The sky doesn't fall. In fact, most people won't even notice. Because, remember, they're too busy worrying about what you think of them. The prison of perception has no locks, only the illusion of them. But here's where Epicurean practice gets really powerful. It's not just about not caring. It's about actively choosing what to care about instead. Remember those natural and necessary desires? Focus on those. Physical health, mental peace, genuine friendship, the simple pleasure of existence. When you're tempted to chase validation, ask yourself, will this matter on my deathbed? Morbid? Maybe. But Epicurus had his own epitaph ready. I was not, I was, I am not, I care not. He understood something we've forgotten in our likes and follows world. You're temporary. They're temporary. Their opinions of you, dust in the cosmic wind. But this moment, this choice, this chance to live authentically, that's real. That's yours. That's now. In the theater of life, the only critic that matters never leaves your side. That critic is you. And it's time you started listening. When you stop caring what others think, the transformation isn't subtle, it's seismic. First, you'll feel lighter, like you've been carrying a backpack full of stones your entire life and finally set it down. That constant mental chatter. What will they think? How did that sound? Should I have said that? Goes quiet. For maybe the first time in your adult life, you experience mental silence. And in that silence, you hear something you'd forgotten. Your own voice. Your real voice. Not the one that's been coached and filtered and focus grouped into acceptability, but the wild, weird, wonderful voice that's been waiting underground like a seed in winter. Your relationships transform. The energy you use to spend managing others' perceptions, you invest it in actual connection. You start having conversations that matter. You stop talking about people and start talking about ideas. You replace small talk with big truth. Some people won't like the new you. Perfect. They didn't like the real you. They liked the performance. Let them go find another show. Your work changes. When you stop optimizing for approval, you start optimizing for impact. You take the creative risks. You speak the unpopular truths. You do the work that matters, not the work that looks good to them. And something unexpected happens. You become more successful, not because you're trying to be, but because authenticity is a superpower in a world of imposters. But the biggest transformation? You fall in love with your own company. Those moments alone stop being terrifying and start being sacred. You don't need the constant stimulation of others' attention because you're finally paying attention to yourself. You become your own best friend, your own trusted advisor, your own source of validation. And from that place of wholeness, you can give to others without depleting yourself. You can love without needing. You can contribute without calculating the return. This is what Epicurus knew. When you need nothing from anyone, you can give everything to everyone. Not from obligation, not from fear, but from the simple joy of being alive and connected to other souls who are also brave enough to be real. So here we are, at the crossroads where you always arrive but usually turn back. On one path, the familiar prison. The likes, the follows, the endless performance, the anxiety, the comparison, the gnawing sense that you're living someone else's life. It's comfortable in its discomfort, safe in its suffering. You know exactly how much it will hurt, and exactly how empty it will leave you. On the other path, the unknown, freedom, the terrifying possibility of being yourself without apology or explanation, the risk of rejection balanced against the promise of authentic connection, the death of who you've been pretending to be and the birth of who you really are. Epicurus made his choice 2,300 years ago. He chose the garden over the forum, truth over approval, peace over applause. And they still remember his name. Not because he tried to be remembered, but because he lived a life worth remembering. What will you choose? Will you keep refreshing that screen, hoping for a hit of validation that's never quite enough? Will you keep wearing masks that get heavier every year? Will you reach your deathbed wondering who you might have been if you'd had the courage to find out? Or will you set down the weight today? Will you delete the app, have the conversation, wear the outfit, speak the truth, choose the path that's calling to your soul, even though everyone says you're crazy? The choice is binary. There's no middle ground. You're either living for them or living for you. And if you're thinking, but it's not that simple, you're right, it's not simple. It's everything. Your liberation begins the moment you realize that the only opinion that truly matters is the one you have of yourself when you're alone with your thoughts. Everything else? Noise. Beautiful, seductive, ultimately meaningless noise. If this hit you in that place where truth lives, if you felt something shift while watching this, don't let the moment pass. Subscribe not because I need your validation, but because you need the reminder that it's possible to live differently. Comment below with the one thing you're going to do today, just one thing, without caring what anyone thinks. Make it public. Make it real. Make it the first step in your journey to freedom. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. You know who they are. They're drowning in others' opinions just like you were some 20 minutes ago. And check out my next video on how nobody will ever control you again. Some insight from Niccolò Machiavelli. Because once you stop caring what others think, you need to learn what to do with all that mental energy you just freed up. Until then, remember, you weren't born to be liked. You were born to be you, and that's more than enough. That's everything. Stop caring what they think. Start living what you know. The transformation begins now.